G'day, Daz here. Today we're going to be looking at a 1994 Mercedes-Benz C180. This is the W202 class, and the problem with this vehicle today is that we have a crank but no start situation. The vehicle is turning over fine with the ignition, but it's not attempting to fire. I think I know what's wrong with the vehicle, and I'll take you through how to diagnose the problem with this vehicle, and it may apply to you and your situation. Okay, let's go. Okay, so the situation today is this Mercedes W202 sedan is cranking over, but it's not firing. We can't get it to run. The battery is fully charged and the vehicle has half a tank of fuel. It'll crank over nicely, but we just can't get it to fire. In a situation like this, the two things that we should consider is that the vehicle either has no spark or it's not receiving any fuel. I'm suspecting the latter at this stage. Now, I'm just going to get my friend Chris to try and start the car now. Give it a crank there, Chris. And as you can see, the vehicle is cranking, but it's not firing and it's not going to run. So let's try and diagnose as quick as we can the fault with this vehicle. So one of the first things we can do is to come around to the back of the vehicle, and we're going to find out if the fuel pump is actually kicking in. If the fuel pump is not kicking in, then that's 90% of the problem diagnosed, because if there's no fuel getting up to the engine, then the vehicle is not going to fire. The way the vehicle is turning over and not firing looks very much like the vehicle is out of fuel. We know it's got plenty of fuel. We've even tapped on the fuel gauge to make sure that the needle wasn't stuck and giving us a false reading. But no, the vehicle has plenty of fuel. So what I've done now is I've come around to the back of the car because this is where the fuel pump is located underneath the floor. And also we have the starter relay for this particular model. It's a 30 amp fuse and the fuel pump relay, and I'm just going to pull the fuse and have a quick look at it in case we just simply have a blown 30 amp fuse. So I've just pulled out the 30 amp fuse, and as you can see there, the fuse is fully intact. I'll try and get a better shot of that for you. There we go, that fuse is fully intact. 30 amps is the correct amperage for that fuse. So that was my first port of call, and that seems to be okay. Now what we're going to do now is I'm going to get someone to start the car, and I'm going to listen for a click here at the fuel pump relay. Chris, just crank it over, please. Actually, turn the ignition onto accessories, please. And I don't know if you heard that, but I just heard a click. Try that again. Yep. So we're hearing the relay is clicking. That sound there is not the fuel pump. That is the old style central locking pump firing up. But what I've noticed is there's no sound of the fuel pump coming on when we're turning the ignition onto accessories. We should hear something like a zzz for a couple of seconds, pumping the fuel up to the engine bay. That's not happening, so the relay seems to be working, the fuse is fine, but it seems like that the fuel pump is not kicking in at all, and that seems to be the culprit. So what we're going to do now is, here in the engine bay, we're going to try and give the vehicle some ether spray to see if we can get it to fire. So we're going to simulate as if the vehicle has now got some fuel. So here's our air intake, there's our air filter down here. Air's coming in through the front grille, it's coming up through this pipe, it's coming here through the mass airflow sensor and into your fuel injection system. Here's your throttle. So there's several places where we can try this. I'm using an amazing Australian product called Start Your Bastard. Instant engine starter, brilliant. I've used it on lawnmowers, cars, tractors, old trucks. Basically anything that has a combustion engine will probably start with this. It's I think it's something equal to like 110 octane jet fuel and EFA. Now, from what I've seen, I could undo this hose clamp here and take that pipe off. That would give me a really good squirt into there. Could also break into the pipe up here. It's just would separate. What I'm going to do, there's a breather hose right here. I'm just going to pull that off. I'm just going to put a little bit of EFA in here, right near where, just after the mass flow sensor, mass airflow. A couple of little squirts. And then what we're going to do, we're going to turn the key and see if the vehicle fires. Now, if it fires, we found our fault. It's the fuel pump, and which will need to be replaced. And if it starts and runs, yep, we've diagnosed our fault. So what we're going to do now, we're going to simulate that the vehicle has now got some fuel added to it. And I'm just going to get this spray of EFA for Start Your Bastard. I'm going to insert it right there in that hole. I'm going to 1, 2, 3 squirts for good luck, and I'm going to get Chris now to turn the vehicle over and hopefully she'll fire. Okay, Chris. Excellent. That's exactly what we wanted. So once the vehicle had something like a bit of fuel getting to it, it fired straight up. So that shows us that the problem is actually the fuel pump, and the fuel pump on this vehicle may actually be original. It could easily be original. I think the current owner has owned the vehicle for at least 15 years.
Not high numbers.
No, and yeah, so we'll look up the fuel pump. We may also even buy a relay. I think they're pretty cheap. So if we replace the fuel pump and the relay at the same time, we've covered both potential problems and start both of them off with a new life. And this old beast should be up and running and back on the road very soon. Okay.